Hi folks, back again, Bathrobe Chronicles number 198. And before I start, a couple of comments. My pal Pete had mentioned a couple of times about the mic. It's only coming out on one channel. And I didn't really pay that much attention to it, frankly. And I use this laptop, and frankly my hearing isn't all that great. And even though I play back all of these things when I process them, I never noticed it was coming out on one channel. I don't know. But I guess overall I've been a little rude, if you will, to have those of you who, faithfully listen in. And if it's irritating you, then I should have done something about it. Anyway, and then another gentleman suggested I go to Radio Shack, which I've been thinking about doing. Long and the short of it, I hope you're hearing both channels. I've got this little gizmo that's a little, I don't know, it's plugged into the camera, and then the single channel or binaural mic is plugged into that, and supposedly this is going to make it so it will come out, I guess, both channels. Anyway, I hope so, and I guess that's sort of that. What I wanted to talk about tonight, I actually did one of these, something similar, a few months ago, and I don't think I got any comments, and I got not that many people looking. And if any of you have stopped by very often here, I don't get a whole lot of folks who are stopping in. If I get 80 or 90 or 100 watching a video, that's quite a bit for me. And for instance, the last two I posted, 197, it was two parts, 62 on the first and 28 on the second. So I don't expect a lot of people to stop in. However, I did this one that I thought was pretty good, and gosh, I got almost no lookers, and I'm sure some of it has to do with the tags, because other than, a handful of you who faithfully stop by, thank you very much, I guess the rest of it is picked up by the tags. I think I had one that was like 800 views, and it may have been the fellow when I ran the one on the Medal of Honor winner, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. What I want to talk about tonight, actually it's in the morning, is this horrible thing that just happened to the South, the tornadoes. Just devastating. Hundreds, literally hundreds of people have been killed in these tornadoes. And I live in Virginia Beach, which I've mentioned before, and night before last, or last night, I can't remember, it's been over the past couple of days. It's past midnight now, so anyway. We actually had a hurricane warning. In other words, the hurricane was coming, so to speak. And just to the southeast, there were several places where, I'm sorry, hurricane, I meant tornado, where tornado touched down. And last week, when the tornadoes came through, not that far from here, maybe 50, 60 miles, 40 miles, whatever, something like that, we had a tornado touchdown, and people were killed. And what I wanted to, here, and I'm being sincere about this, I really am. Any of you guys out there ever pray? I was trying to remember if I ever prayed, and if so, when it was, and I'm sure I must have sometime. I'm not sure when. Like most folks who grow up in the States, my mom dragged me off to church. That's all there was to it. You went to church, and kicking or screaming or otherwise, you were going to make it to church. So of course I, went to church. Whether I ever prayed, I'm not sure. And I don't think I participated that much, like early on or whatever, but she did drag me off to that daggone Sunday school stuff. And boy, was that a pain in the butt. I never did like that. The only thing about getting a little older is I got to a point where she didn't drag me off to Sunday school, you know. What am I working up to here? I'm not really sure. And I think for quite a bit of the time that I was dragged off to church, yeah, I don't think I really paid that much attention to what was going on, and I doubt, you know, looking back, you know, that my religious beliefs were all that strong. I don't think they were. I don't know. And of course, come on, I'm 70, almost 72 years old, and we're going back to, you know, being 14, 15, and 16. And I'm sure my memory is somewhat clouded. Hey, it's somewhat clouded what happened yesterday, but what am I working up to here? Excuse me. So this praying stuff. Now, we definitely, I hope, I'm sure some people consider us a Christian nation. We are a nation who undoubtedly, the highest percentage of the folks who are religious are Christian, of course. And I would imagine that if you, I was going to say buy into, that's a poor choice of words, but if you are a devout or practicing Christian, whatever term you want to use, I guess praying is part of the whole deal because, you know, sort of if you don't pray, you're going to get your butt kicked in the end anyway. But I would imagine most Christians pray. And that would be a reasonable thing to assume since that's part of the whole deal. Now, here's what I want to know. And as I said, I did this one before. What I want to know is this. When all this stuff is happening, these horrible tornadoes, and there's a tornado alert or warning or whatever, and the tornado is coming toward you, so to speak. In other words, you know, the radar can see these things. I would imagine that, especially if you're in that area, that almost 100% of you guys, you Christians, are going to be praying up a storm. You know, dear God, please, you know, don't let this tornado hit us and kill us and destroy our house and devastate our neighborhood and kill my friends. And, you know, you go through that, I would imagine. Now, here's my question. What happens when the tornado just bears right down on you, destroys your home, kills your neighbors, and all of that? What are your thoughts then? In other words, when this is all over and done with, what do you think? I mean, do you ever question saying, what the hell's going on? Do you ever question that? My understanding of Christianity, regardless of whether you're Lutheran or Methodist or Baptist or whatever, I would imagine most of you guys think that God is all-powerful, God controls everything, God can do whatever He wants. You know, God can perform what you guys refer to as miracles. So, here's my question. How can you sign up with or go in with someone who, on one hand, you say is merciful and all this other kind of stuff, and answers your prayers and all this other kind of stuff, and is all powerful and all this other kind of stuff, but allows a tornado to come through and kill your neighbors and destroy your homes, destroy your communities. Sometimes in these small towns, destroy the town. In other words, what do you think about that? That's the part that, I was going to say that's the part that's hard to believe, but it really isn't. And hey, I'm far from a scholarly kind of person. I'm sort of a wannabe skeptic, you know. But I think a lot of this you can chalk up to that cognitive dissonance and the old confirmation bias, I guess. But really, if any Christians stumble across this video, I'd really appreciate your comments. I really would. In other words, how can you continue to pray to this God of yours when these kinds of things happen? The other thing I sort of rant and rave about is the fact that when something like this happens, this devastation, especially recently, with the number of people killed, well over 300 now, I believe, and just ripping into communities and tearing them apart. And then you'll have these Christians and they'll say, oh, it's a miracle, because they find some poor human being who's been trapped in all this rubble, you know, for a day or two or something like that, and they say, oh, it's a miracle, praise the Lord. Now here's what I don't get. I can understand you saying that's a miracle, praise the Lord, but why aren't you on the other hand saying, fuck you, why did you allow this to happen in the first place? I shouldn't have used the F word, I'm trying not to do that. But seriously, oh, I mean, what do you guys think? How can this happen? You know, how can these people keep like going to church and praying and giving 10% and all that other kind of BS? I don't get it. Now I have something. If you'd bear with me, I actually took the time to write this. Yes, and I want to read it to you. And I think you might. I think you. Anyway, let me read it to you. Excuse me. The beauty of religious mania is that it has the power to explain everything. Once God, or Satan, is accepted as the first cause of everything which happens in the mortal world, nothing is left to chance or change. Once such phrases as, "we see now through a glass darkly," and "mysterious are the ways he chooses his wonders to perform," are mastered, logic can be happily tossed out the window. Religious mania is one of the few infallible ways of responding to the world's vagaries, because it totally eliminates pure accident. To the true religious maniac, it's all on purpose. Anybody have any idea where this came from? I just a couple of days ago posted a couple of videos, and I'm pretty sure in one of them I mentioned I was reading Stephen King's The Stand. This is from The Stand. The one I'm reading now is like the 1,100-page monster. I read the one many years ago, which I think was 600 or 700 pages. But anyway, this is from The Stand. And for those of you who haven't read The Stand, and of course I haven't read it in a long time, but I basically have the idea now after almost 700 pages, is it's a battle between good and evil. The world, as we know it, you know, almost everyone is dead because of this horrible virus or what have you that the army had developed that got loose and killed all of us. There's just a handful of people left, and some of the stuff is, of course, supernatural. But ultimately, it's this battle between good and evil. And Randall Flagg, who is evil, who's the evil part of all this, who is also referred to as the walking dude, he's out in Las Vegas, and he's getting ready, you know, for this battle between the good and evil. And on the East Coast, the folks are, you know, headed west, and they're gathering and getting together, and of course that would be the good folks, you know. But where this comes from is one of Randall Flagg's guys is called Trash Can Man, and he was a fellow who always set fires and, you know, things like that. And he's in a heck of a predicament with another bad guy, and Randall Flagg mysteriously, you know, saves him from being killed by this other person. So as Trash Can Man is walking toward Vegas after this incident, this is what's in the book. And this pretty much, you know, sums it up, man. It really does. Here's old Stephen King, you know. Pretty much sums it up, you know. Once you throw in, that's it. And everything's sort of okay, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you know, that's the deal. As the last thing here, it says, to the truly religious maniac, it's all on purpose. So anyway, folks, I guess that's about it. I've just wasted about 15 minutes of your time, possibly. I hope I haven't. But as I said, if any Christians stumble across here, I'd really like to know how you can continue on with all of these things happening, you sitting there praying, and dreadful, dreadful, dreadful things continue to happen. The other thing, you know, I know this is all simplistic, and for that I apologize, well, sort of. But how can you imagine that someone can, like, run a heaven and hell, if you will, and they can't even stop a damn tornado? Come on. How can someone part a sea and they can't stop a tornado? Kill their son, resurrect him, and they can't stop a tornado? I don't know. But even you unbelievers or non-believers or whatever, hey, you know, please feel free to comment. I just, you know, well, I guess I understand it, but the thing is, how can these people keep going through this? You know, or maybe they just don't think. And no, I'm not saying that religious people are stupid or ignorant or what have you, although, let's face it, they have their percentage too. There's some really bright people who, you know, who are religious. I guess they just shut that whole thing off, you know. Whatever. Anyway, folks, if you've listened this long, thank you so much. And I hope this thing comes out on both channels now. Pete, if you watch this one, let me know. You guys take care. And as Pat Condell would say, peace, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.